Okay, in this part of the video we are now going to fit the dial and the hands, and then set the hands so that the day date changes when the hands go past 12. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice something a little bit different. I can assure you this is still the same 6309 movement. The issue I'd got is I'd got plans for this movement to go into a different watch, because the donor watch that it came from, the dial was too bad. Here it is. Now, even with my restoration skills, I don't really want to attempt trying to clean this and trying to source a new bezel for it. So I have another watch that takes this dial, which is a really nice sort of brown colour. The problem I'd got is that this watch has got a crown at 4 and the other one's got a crown at 3. And whilst you wouldn't think that would matter, it matters when it comes to the day date display. Despite the fact that they both show at 3, on the crown at 4, they just don't line up with the 3 o'clock position. So I've had to change them in order to be able to use this watch and also demonstrate to you how it's done. So you'll also notice as well that I've got finger cuts on both hands now. Certainly when you get towards handling the dial, you don't want to leave any fingerprints on that at all. The dial is everything on the watch, and you will see that, and if you see it, it will annoy you until you clean it. So best practice, get your finger cuts, cover yourself up. So to fit the dial, if you again have been watching from the disassembly videos, you'll remember that they're held on by 2 dial screws. We've got one here and we've got one down here. And I also advised in tightening those up in order that we didn't lose them during any cleaning or just general tinkering. To lose one of these screws is a pain. To try and fit one back is even harder. So all we want to do now is just loosen them off a little bit, enough for the dial feet to get past something like that gap there. Try and avoid touching the balance. Okay. Now we've loosened the feet, and before we put the dial on, you should have your sort of movement holder that holds it in place into the watch. I forget what this is called off the top of my head right now. It'll look something a bit like this. On my new watch, it's a different version of the same thing. Now, just to explain how these would go on. If you got one similar to this or exactly the same as this, you want to be looking for that. That square cutout will go round the crown and the stem over there, like so. Not only that, another giveaway is this little shape here and this little shape here, because they will line up where the dial screws are. So if I sort of put that on top in the right position, it's hard to do, you can kind of see. So I have got to use this one. This one's slightly different, so again you might have one the same as this, but we're looking for the same thing. We're not looking for the one like this, we're looking for it with these indentation marks. That's the one that's going to go over the crown, and there's like a bit of a semicircle there and there also, which would show the dial screws. Fitting these, I think a proper watchmaker would tell you to use tweezers. However, all I try to do is lie it down, find the position, again avoiding touching the balance. Right, so that is fitted. And now we get the dial, line it up with your 3 o'clock. You can see on this one it's already found its place. I'm then just going to gently hold the watch like so, and then tighten those dial feet back up. There we have it. There is a dial. Check that it looks okay. It does look okay, it's just that the light that we're at makes it look a bit off. Again, inspect the dial, Rodico if necessary, any dust particles. I wouldn't advise rubbing, but certainly dabbing. Dust does like to congregate around the indices, so it's always worth going over. You'll be surprised at what is there. Small hairs and dust, and maybe even some loom, because the loom does degrade over time and turn into particles. But there we are. So we have the dial now back on. So the next part is fitting the hands. I'll quickly show you the tool, or try to show you the tool. I've got a hand pusher. These are quite cheap off eBay, and they have, on one end they've got a small hole, I think you can see that just, and the other end a larger hole. I've only ever used the larger hole. If you haven't got one of these, fear not. One easy solution is to get a biro pen, and the end of this is almost the same, so you could in theory use it. Okay, so the next part is to put the hour hand on, and what we want to do first is we want to wind the watch until we see the date change. Like so. Then we'll get the hour hand, and you'll notice that it's got a bit sticking out of, that's the bottom, and you want to line that up as good as you can. For 12. Take your pusher, the larger end, push. Don't push it too hard, it doesn't need a lot, but push it. And then inspect. So you want to see if it's on properly. On mine, as you can see here, it's not. It's slightly leaning to one side. I can correct that like so. Then you want to wind it on to make sure that it doesn't catch on anything, so the dates around, or in this case the Seiko badge as well. So I'm happy there that it's not touching anything. So we'll wire around again. Okay, once you're happy with the hour hand, repeat the same procedure for the minute hand. Once again, have a look, see if they look like they're okay and not touching. Make adjustments if you feel they are necessary. And then wind through 24. So in my case, that's too early. So it's changed at 11:45. So what I would do normally now is take the hands off and start again and get them a little bit more accurate. What's happened there is the hour hand must have been slightly off, I would assume, and possibly the minute hand as well. But rather than shoot the video again, I'll show you that even it doesn't go right for me first time. So the last one, of course, is the second hand, and the second hand can be quite tricky, certainly for you first timers. Once again, it has there's a little lug on it there which has got the hole in it which sits on the top, and this takes a bit of practice to get it right. I tend to pick it up so the thing is on the bottom, and then line up with the hole like so. I don't use the pusher at this point. I will tend to just gently push with the tweezers. And now what you're seeing is what I was going to say next, is to make sure that the hands don't hamper the second hand. I think any watchmaker will tell you that they don't always get the hands on first time. Obviously you want the second hand to clear everything, and all I've done there is I've realised that it was not parallel, so it was sticking down on the long end, which was then fouling on the minute hand. And you can see now when I wind it, it's not catching on anything. So, as always, if you've got to this part of the video and you've got to this part in your watch, congratulations again. You've accomplished absolutely everything. You've been able to take it apart, you've been able to put it back together again, you've now been able to set the hands. Even if you don't want to have a go at watchmaking, perhaps setting the hands is something you want to do because over time they've become out of sync. Okay, now all we have to do is case the movement. I have this square case for this one that I've refurbed, put all the lines back on. It's a very 70s square case for this Seiko. Make sure that your crystal is clean. Use some window cleaner, or I use spectacle wipes. You can also use Rodico as well, just to get some of the, if there's any dust. So once you're happy, line the movement up with the crown hole. There we are, it's in the case. Then you want to make sure the crown hole is lined up like so. And then take your crown and push home. Then the last operation, as you can see, I've got a different one of these now. If you recall, my rotor was really rotten and dirty. Well, I have that many donors that I found a much cleaner one to go in this watch. One last check, make sure it's all working. And then for me, it's time to put the case back on. Which I'll just nip up with my fingers. And there you have it. The finished watch. The crown's a bit out on this one. I'll probably have to change the stem on that to make it look a bit more fitting. So there we are, from start to finish, all in one video. So there we are. If you've got this far and I've not bored you to tears, well done. Hopefully this gives you all an insight into some basic watch repair and the ability for anybody to have at least have a go. It just takes a bit of patience and a bit of practice. So before I say thank you for watching and subscribe and all of those sort of things that everybody says on YouTube, I've got one little new tool to bore you with, and this is an aptly named Picker Upperer tool, and it looks like a pen, and it just has this red end. And if I bring in, for instance, the C clip off another watch, I think for a beginner as well, trying to remove some screws once you've unscrewed them, pretty good idea. I've got lots of uses for this with cap jewels, so I just thought I'd show it. It was very cheap, bought it from Cousins in the UK. I think it was about £4. Well worth it. So, okay, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed all this and you found it beneficial. Please like and subscribe. Please join the Facebook group, Retro and Vintage Watches and Restorations. Thank you very much, guys.